Corruption has been a topic in our country for decades. From Spaniards colonizing our country, Americans setting our independence, up to the administration of Rodrigo Roa Duterte from 2016 to 2022. It has woven its presence into the fabric of power structure, leaving an inedible mark on the course of history. Join us and let's dive into the history of corruption in the Philippines through reports, cases, and situations that had occurred. Well, during the Spaniards' occupation here in the Philippines, let's hear from Josie Magdui what had happened during that time.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Magastino. So during the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, which lasted for more than 300 years until the late 19th century, there were instances of corruption within the colonial administration. Spanish officials and representatives were responsible for governing the archipelago, and some of them engaged in corrupt practices. The novel written by our national hero, Jose Rizal, The No Limit Tangere, and the El Filibusterismo has been the best example of how corrupt the Spanish regime is.
Thank you for your report during the Japanese occupation. Now let's dive into the American occupation. Well, during the American colonial period in the Philippines, 1899 to 1946, there was a certain corruption case that occurred, the Moralistas scandal that occurred in the early 20th century. The Moralistas scandal involved allegations of corruption against high-ranking American officials, including Governor General William Howard Taft. It was centered around the group of American businessmen known as the Moralistas, who were accused of being their influence to gain control of lucrative government contracts and monopolies. The controversy revealed a complex web of relationship between American officials and private interests, leading to the accusation of bribery and collusion. The scandal highlighted the challenges of governance in colonial setting and had initially welcomed the arrival of the United States as liberators from Spanish rule.
So during in Japanese occupation of the Philippines, 1942 to 1945.
During the Japanese occupation in the Philippines, 1942 to 1945 during the World War II, the Japanese introduced a new currency commonly referred to as Mickey Mouse money.
Japanese occupation in the Philippines from 1942 to 1945, during the World War II, the Japanese introduced a new currency commonly referred as the Mickey Mouse money by Filipinos, as its design featured images of Disney characters like Mickey Mouse. This currency was introduced to replace the Philippine Commonwealth peso. The exchange rate, however, was highly unfavorable, leading to economic hardship for the local population. Amidst this, there were reports of corruption and black markets involving Japanese officials and collaborators. Some took advantage of their positions to manipulate currency exchanges, exacerbating the economic difficulties faced by Filipinos during the occupation.
In a shocking revelation, a series of corruption scandals have come to light, tarnishing an administration of both Emilio Aguinaldo and Manuel L. Quezon, former President of the Philippines. These allegations have raised serious concern about the integrity and transparency of the government during that respective terms. During Emilio Aguinaldo's administration, a number of corruption cases emerged, exposing the misuse of public funds, bribery, kickback schemes, and manipulation of government funds. This allegation cast doubt on the credibility and accountability of the government at that time. One prominent corruption case involved the embezzlement of public funds. It was alleged that high-ranking officials within Aguinaldo administration misappropriated significant amounts of money intended for public welfare and development projects. These funds were meant to improve infrastructure, healthcare, education, and other essential services for the people of the Philippines. For example, it was reported that Aguinaldo Secretary War, Artemio Ricarte, was involved in a corruption scandal related to misallocation of military funds. Ricarte allegedly diverted funds to purchase of military supplies for personal gain, compromising the country's defense capabilities. Additionally, bribery and kickback schemes were prevalent during this period. Government officials were accused of accepting bribes in exchange for granting favors, contracts, and other benefits to private individuals and companies. These illicit activities not only eroded public funds but also hinder the country's progress and development. One notable example of bribery involved the awarding of government contracts. It was alleged that Aguinaldo's administration awarded contracts to be favored individuals and companies without following proper procedures or considering competitive behavior. This practice resulted in inflated costs and compromised the quality and efficiency of the public projects. Moving forward to Emilio Quezon administration, corruption scandals continued to plague the country, the government. Misappropriation of public funds, bribery, and favoritism and nepotism were among the issues that tainted Quezon's. Similar to Aguinaldo's administration, misallocation of public funds was a major concern. Hierarchical officials in Quezon's administration were accused of embezzlement. Funds meant for public welfare, developed projects. These funds were intended to improve infrastructure, healthcare, education, and other essential services. Bribery and favoritism were also prevalent during Quezon's administration. Government officials were alleged to have accepted bribes in exchange for granting favors, contracts, and other benefits to private individuals and companies. This corrupt practice undermined fair competition and hindered the country's progress. Furthermore, nepotism and abuse of power were reported during this period. Certain officials were accused of using their positions to benefit themselves and their family. Granting them lucrative contracts, positions of influence, this nepotistic behavior undermined the principle of fairness and equal opportunity within the government. During the scandals, during this administrations of Aguinaldo and Quezon had a detrimental impact on the country's economic and governance. Misappropriation of public funds, bribery, favoritism, and nepotism eroded public trust and hindered the nation's progress.
During Jose P. Lauda's presidency in 1943 to 1945, recent investigations into Jose C.P. Lauda's presidency reveal allegations of corruption and amid the challenges of Japanese occupation. Operating under wartime constraint, the administration faced economic difficulties, possibly leading to corruption. Critics argue that collaboration with the Japanese influenced decision-making, particularly in financial, transaction, and resource allocation. That Kalibati, a political organization associated with Japanese-sponsored government, is a key focus with reports suggesting financial irregularities. Despite limited documentation, scholars stress the need for a nuanced approach to understand occupation during Lauda's presidency. Considering the broader context of occupation, ongoing research aims to provide a clearer picture of the challenges faced by the Philippines in the complex history period.
During the time of Sergio's Mania in the Philippines, corruption was a prevalent issue as it has been throughout various administrations. Sergio's Mania served as the fourth president of the Philippines from 1944 to 1946, following the end of the Japanese corruption during World War II. While specific cases or situations of corruption during Spaniards' administration are not readily available, it is important to note that corruption has been a persistent challenge in the Philippine politics. During this period, corruption could have manifested in various forms such as bribery, embezzlement, and favoritism. It is worth mentioning that Sergio's Mania's presidency was marked by efforts to rebuild the country after the devastation of war. The focus was primarily on the reconstruction of and rehabilitation, as well as the restoration of democratic institutions. However, corruption remained a concern as it did in subsequent administration.
During the time of Aguinaldo, he is the third and last president of the Commonwealth and the first president of the Philippine Republic. Here are the list of corruption during his term. 1. Surplus, war, and property scandals. When Rojas assumed the presidency, the country was still recovering from World War II. The surplus war property scandal was significant controversy during his term. Number 2. Abuse of provincial military police. The abuse committed by the provincial military police contribute to the rise of the left-wing Balaha movement in the countryside. Rojas' heavy-handed attempts to crush the whole play of widespread peasant disaffection. Number 3, external influence. Ramon policies were effected by the General MacArthur and the U.S. High Commissioners, Paul B. McNutt. This external influence may have impact on the decision made by during his presidency.
Elpidio Quirino. During his presidency from 1948 to 1950, there were some controversies and allegations related to corruption. Number 1, Golden Arinola controversy. Quirino was popularly linked to the Golden Arinola. However, this allegation was reportedly just for show to make Quirino's election and to make then Senator Ramon Magsaysay presidential bid more favorable. Number 2, impeachment complaint. He was accused of using government funds for the lady's refurbishment and renovation of Malacanang Palace. Another basis for the complaint was the alleged involvement of Quirino in diamond smuggling. Number 3, graft and corruption. Quirino administration faced allegations of widespread graft and corruption. Basic social problems, particularly in rural areas, remain solved, garnishing his presidency.
During the time of Ramon Magsaysay, who served as the President of the Philippines from 1953 until his death in 1957, was known for his anti-corruption stance and effort to promote good governance. Magsaysay implemented various measures to combat corruption, such as establish integrity board and conducting investigation into corruption practice. However, it's important to note that despite Magsaysay's efforts, corruption was not eradicated during his administration. Some incidents of corruption as controversies did occur, but Magsaysay's commitment to transparency and accountability remains a significant aspect of his legacy. It's advisable to consult historical records and scholarly sources for more understanding of the specific instance and challenge related to corruption during Magsaysay's time.
This administration faced allegations of corruption, particularly related to the behest loans scandal. Despite these challenges, Garcia is remembered for his efforts to promote Filipino nationalism and his economic policies for national development.
During Ramos' presidency, there were accusations of corruption within his administration. These allegations included claims of kickbacks, embezzlement, and misuse of public funds. Critics pointed to various government projects and contracts that were allegedly painted by corrupt practices. Additionally, there are concerns about releases and favoritism in the acquiring of contracts and positions.
Corruption activities during the Marcos administration. The administration of former President Ferdinand Marcos was marked by numerous corruption activities that were perpetrated by his government officials, their associates, and even their families. These corruption activities were widespread and affected various sectors of society, including the government, the business, and even the civil society. One of the most significant corruption activities during the Marcos administration was the plunder of national treasury. The President and his associates allegedly embezzled billions of pesos from the government, which was intended for various development projects and even in the social programs. This corruption activity was facilitated by the creation of fake government projects and the manipulation of government accounts. Graft and corruption were rampant in all branches of government during this Marcos administration. Government officials and their associates were accused of accepting bribes, kickbacks, and other forms of corruption in exchange for favors and contracts. This corruption was particularly prevalent in the military, where officers were accused of embezzling funds meant for military operations and using them for personal gain. Bribery and extortion. Bribery and extortion were common practices during the Marcos administration. Businesses were forced to pay bribes to government officials in order to create and obtain licenses and permits. This practice was particularly prevalent in the Customs and Taxation Department, where officials allegedly accepted bribes in exchanges for reduced tariffs and even in taxes. The Marcos administration was also accused of misusing government resources for personal gain. This included the use of government planes, vehicles, and other assets for personal trips and even activities. The President and his associates were also accused of using government funds to purchase luxury items and properties both in the Philippines and even in the abroad. Kickbacks and conflicts of interest were also prevalent during the Marcos administration. Government officials and their associates were accused of receiving kickbacks from contractors and suppliers in exchange for awarding them. Government contracts these practices was particularly prevalent in the construction and infrastructure sectors where contracts were allegedly awarded to the companies that were owned by the President associates. Nepotism and cronyism were also prevalent during the Marcos administration. The President and his associates allegedly awarded government contracts and positions to their relatives and close friends. This practice was particularly prevalent in government hiring and even in the procurement of processes. Bribery and extortion was also alleged under this administration. Judges were accused of accepting bribes from lawyers and litigants in exchange for favorable judgment and rulings. This practice undermined the rule of law and the integrity of the judicial system. Under this administration, the corruption in military was also plagued by corruption under this administration, in which military officials were accused of embezzling funds meant for military operations and using them for personal gain. This corruption was allegedly facilitated by the creation of fake military projects and the manipulation of military accounts. In conclusion, the Marcos administration was marked by widespread corruption activities that affected various sectors of the society. These corruption activities undermine the rule of law, the integrity of the government, and the well-being of the Filipino people. To address these issues, it is essential to strengthen institutions, improve transparency and accountability, and lead good governance.
One of the most notable corruption during Macapagas presidency was the Gar's tape scandal. The scandal was exposed when a series of audio recordings known as the Gar's tapes were leaked to the media, revealing conversations between Macapagal and his allies discussing the fraudulent activities. Another instance of corruption during Macapagas presidency was the pork barrel scam, which involved the misuse of government funds allotted for infrastructure projects. Macapagal and his allies were accused of using the funds for their own personal gain rather than for the intended purpose of the project. The scandal led to widespread protests and calls for Macapagal's resignation. In addition to these high-profile scandals, Macapagal's presidency was also marred with the allegations of nepotism and cronyism. The president was accused of appointing family members and close friends to key positions within the government, including his son Joseph Estrada, who was appointed as the Secretary of the Department of the Human Settlements and Urban Development. During Joseph Estrada's presidency, from 1998 to 2001, allegations of corruption were widespread. One famous case involved the misuse of funds intended for the tobacco excise tax, diverting millions in personal accounts. The subsequent impeachment trial in 2000, however, ended prematurely, with Estrada stepping down amidst widespread protests. The unresolved cases continued to cast a shadow over the nation. Okay, let's go to Gloria Arroyo, who has succeeded Estrada, faced her own set of corruption scandal during her presidency from 2001 to 2010. The Hello Garcia scandal in 2005 raised serious concerns about electoral fraud, as wiretap conversations suggested manipulation of votes in 2004 elections. Arroyo was also accused of corruption in the controversial National Broadband Network, deal with a Chinese company, ZTE Corporation, which involved alleged kickbacks. Furthermore, during Arroyo's term, the infamous Euro General scandal unfolded in 2008, exposing high-ranking police officials involved in the misuse of funds intended for anti-drug operations. The scandal prompted widespread public outrage and showcased the depth of corruption within key institutions.
We have heard enough of the corrupt activities committed by our colonizers. Let's hear some of the cases of corruption from previous administrations, starting from Emilio Aguinaldo.
So during Benito Aquino Jr. administration on 2010 to 2016, one is the pork barrel scam, which was the biggest scandal involving public funds, and this led to the detention of the 3 senators and several laws makers on plunder and graft charges on July 2013. Second is the Mama Sapano operation. This is one of the most significant controversies during this term on January 2015. In this anti-terror mission in Maguindanao, 44 police commandos and 18 more Islamic Liberation Front fighters and at least 5 civilians lost their lives. Third of the corruption and graft, removal of anti-graft agency head Aquino faced criticism for leading effort to remove the head of the anti-graft agency on allegation of corruption. Lastly, graft charge against Police General. The Anti-Corruption Agency Ombudsman filed graft charges against Police General over the inflated price paid for helicopter in the fake repair of the armored vehicle.
During the Duterte administration, President Rodrigo Duterte has legacy which is fighting corruption in government until his term ends. The Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission or the PACC was created during Duterte administration to address corruption. The PACC has received around 13,000 corruption complaints since 2018 and has been actively investigating these cases corruption. So, during the Duterte administration, there were several cases of corruption that were reported. The one is Department of Health COVID-19 funds. So one of these is the Department of Health COVID-19 funds. The Commission on Audit found deficiency in the use of 67.3 billion by the DOH in the fight against COVID-19. The COA reported highlighted irregularities in funds transfer and delay in the delivery of medical supplies. This Senate investigated the irregularities in fund use, particularly in contract with pharmaceutical, a company that received billions of pesos in supply contracts despite being newly incorporated. The second is the Bureau of Customs Drug Smuggling. In 2017, 6.4 billion worth of illegal drugs from China were discovered hidden in warehouses in Valenzuela City. The drugs were smuggled through the Manila International Container Port. The Senate investigation revealed the involvement of then Commissioner Nicanor Paeldon. Despite the controversies, President Duterte defended Paeldon and claimed that the drugs slipped past the system. The third one is the Bureau of Immigration bribery scandal. In 2020, it was revealed that officials of the BI received bribes allowing hundreds of thousands of Chinese individuals illegally enter the Philippines and work for the Philippines offshore gaming operators. The Senate investigation exposed the VIP treatment provided to Chinese individuals in exchange for bribes. The last one is the PhilHealth Insurance Corporation role. The COA called out PhilHealth for its payment scale, the flat control mechanism to detect and prevent fraud.
Corruption during the administration of Corazon Aquino, the first female president of the Philippines, was a significant issue. Aquino came to power after the People Power Revolution in 1986. Following the ousting of Ferdinand Marcos, her presidency faced challenges related to corruption with several notable instances of corrupt activities. One major corruption scandal during the Aquino administration was the carbonate controversy. This involved allegations that high-ranking government officials were involved in a scheme to smuggle and sell millions of dollars worth of gold without paying taxes. The scandal tarnished the reputation of the Aquino's administration for government and it raised concerns about the corruption within her administration. Another significant issue was the illegal misuse of public funds by some government officials. Reports emerged embezzlement and appropriation of public money for personal gain. These activities undermine the public trust and raise questions about the integrity of the government under the Aquino's leadership. There were accusations of nepotism in the Aquino's administration, with some critics claiming that her close associated and family members received favorable treatment in the government and appointment and contracts. This allegation fueled perceptions of favoritism and unfair practices in the government. In conclusion, while the Corazon Aquino's presidency was marked by her commitment to democracy and freedom, it also faced challenges related to corruption. The carbonate scandal, the misuse of public funds, and the allegations of nepotism were among the notable instances of corrupt activities during her administration.